Howdy, let's go old school and talk about good old, sometimes bad old South Park. The show is known for discussing just about any sensitive material, often including the subject as a core part of their narrative, and driving their point into the ground until the censor's jaws drop. So today, let's check out the top 10 darkest South Park episodes. Whether these episodes are good, bad, or downright horrifically abysmal, they all contain some sensitive or unpleasant content in one way or the other. And I think it's worth mentioning, regardless of what I think of these episodes, I'm glad to see these difficult subjects being at least addressed by a show. Because as Mr. Rogers would say, anything that is mentionable is manageable. But obviously, there will be some darker subjects in animation discussed than usual. But as always, we'll try and discuss these subjects with respect and keep it tasteful. Though some of these episodes can be completely graceless with these subjects, so just a heads up in advance. This will probably be one of my darkest lists yet. Anyway, on to the countdown. Number 10. Stanley's Cup. This episode's a parody of the typical underdog sports movie, but with a downright miserable, bleak twist. And frankly, there's few movies in the world I hate as much as Mighty Ducks, so this was actually pretty cathartic for me. But at the same time, this episode can be tasteless and brutal. The episode follows Stan, whose bike gets impounded by the county, and he has to coach a minor hockey team in order to get it back.
When you were in kindergarten, you played on the Park County Pee Wee hockey team.
Yeah?
Well, it just so happens that the Pee Wee hockey team this year needs a coach.
But at their very first meeting, he discovers one of the kids has leukemia.
What, you got asthma or something?
No, he has cancer.
And his condition is worsening, and just in time for their first match too. When Stan comes to visit, the young fella named Nelson asks Stan to promise that they will win their first match, or else he just might not make it through the night.
Will you just win for me?
Okay.
But fortunately, the match ends in a tie, and Nelson gets to live another day. And if Stan wins the next game, Nelson might be able to make a full recovery.
If you lose the big game, that little boy is gonna die faster than Steve Irwin in a tank full of stingrays.
Hey, too soon. Though, how much time actually does need to pass before that joke could be considered funny? Ugh. But the ever-resilient Stan rises to the challenge and enlists the help of Ike, Kyle's brother, who's naturally very good at hockey. Oh, I see what they did there. Very cheeky.
Don't kick the goddamn baby.
The team gets so close to an easy victory, but problems arise when the other team doesn't show up. Stan, in an act of desperation, chooses to have his team go up against a full-blown professional hockey team.
They can take our place. Yeah, let them play the Red Wings.
Play the Red Wings?
But the professional hockey team is such a good sport, they choose to face the kindergartners. Now on any other show, the professional hockey team would probably go easy on Stan's team, in order to give them their victory. But this is South Park, and I really hate those stupid Mighty Ducks movies. So the episode takes a very gruesome turn, with the children being, savagely bloodied and beaten by the other team, suffering a crushing defeat, to put it lightly.
Stop! Stop this!
Let them play! Let them play! Let them play!
In a painfully accurate recreation of every one of those stupid Mighty Ducks movies, the team revels in their victory. You see, apparently Stan and the kindergartners were the real villains in this movie. The more you know. But I do like the fact that the ending is a middle finger to every single one of those anger-inducing, rotten Mighty Ducks movies. God, I hate those movies. I'm sorry, I don't know why they're just so cliche and stupid.
I'm under the impression that you really don't like Mighty Ducks there, Strider.
Damn right I don't, Robin. In fact, I'm calling it. Nelson wasn't killed by Stan's poor management decisions. He was killed by the Mighty Ducks movie.
Hey guys, it's me. I'm gonna go back to editing. Okay, bye.
Oh, thanks Robin. Call me if you need me. Number 9. The China Problem. I don't mean that in a racist way, that's just how the title is spelt. This episode portrays ethnic persecution, but with no real grace or intelligence whatsoever. Plus, it repeats the same stupid, gross-out jokes over and over. But I should mention the story first. The episode begins with Cartman having a nightmare about the Chinese taking over the USA. Cartman enlists the help of Butters to stop this, fictional invasion?
I can't stop the Chinese tornado. I'm supposed to make a model call with my dad.
Cartman and Butters plan to infiltrate a P.F. Chang's Chinese bistro, donning an offensive disguise and accent to try and convince others that he is in fact Chinese. And I hope you laughed at that joke, because they beat that dead horse till poor old Clip Clop rises as a zombie. While in the restaurant, Cartman begins harassing random Asian families.
What are the plans to take over America again? I forgot.
And when the Asian family tries to get Cartman thrown out of the restaurant, the rotten little psychopath takes the entire restaurant hostage. When the police arrive, Cartman says he'll only negotiate with the president. A long, boring stalemate follows, featuring Butters repeatedly shooting people in the groin. Ugh. This is the only piece of media I've ever seen do this and try to make it funny. I mean, I just think there's certain things we can't make funny. If you're a male monkey or a Homo sapien and have a single mirror neuron in your brain, you'll just be like, ouch. Sadly, Cartman gets out unscathed. The cops should have just brought in Wendy to beat this little monster's face in again. Oh, isn't that beautiful? In fact, let's see that again. And apparently because the episode needed to be even bleaker and darker, the subplot follows the other boys as they recount a grueling scene from the latest Indiana Jones movie, featuring Steven Spielberg and George Lucas sexually assaulting Indy right before their very eyes. And lucky us, we get to see it fully animated to behold. It's easily among the most tasteless, revolting jokes they've done in the entire series. And by season 12, Trey and Matt have given themselves some stiff competition. Regardless of who you are or what film you made, I have no ability to laugh at a person being hurt that way. It's a stupid, pointless episode with a dark, horrible plot that isn't even worth looking at. And for the record, I like the fourth Indiana Jones movie. What, it was fun seeing Harrison Ford in a modern day setting. And for number 8, Cartman joins Nambla. While I wouldn't call this episode visually dark, it does contain a very disturbing subject matter. You see, Cartman has a disagreement with his friends, leading him to try to create a more mature friend group. And after an unsuccessful attempt of doing so online, he is advised to join Nambla by Dr. Mephisto.
Yes, I've been a member for several years. I'm sure they'd let you join. You look about right.
But rather than joining the National Marlon Brando lookalikes group, Cartman ends up joining the revolting North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Can we help you?
Yes, I'd like to join your fine organization. Is that cool?
Nambla quickly makes Cartman their poster boy and makes a meeting, telling Cartman to invite his other school friends. Naively, the boys attend, not knowing the group's true motives. Fortunately, they very soon discover it.
Dude, I think these guys mean to have sexual encounters with us. I know, dude. Let's get the hell out of here.
Thankfully, the cops are quick on the case to arrest the group, with the help of the Marlon Brando lookalikes, who are just awesome. I find this episode interesting because despite its gruesome subject matter, they handle the subject with a surprising amount of grace and care. In fact, the episode subtly teaches us the grooming tactics these monsters can use to manipulate children, with a comedic edge to make it more digestible. Like, these guys are always being arrested by the FBI before Cartman can meet them.
What the hell just happened?
So it serves as both an entertainment piece and a good safety education piece, because it's very cathartic to see these criminals arrested and locked up.
Okay, people, I think you better move along before I arrest more of you.
It was a good way to handle the subject carefully, though it does kind of make me wish the FBI were really this efficient at tracking these criminals down. I'd give up like 50% of my income to see all these guys thrown in the clink.
Yeah, you know, we believe in equality for everybody and tolerance and all that stuff, but dude, fuck you. Seriously.
Thankfully, Nambla was disbanded in 2006, but I think we still need to be vigilant of grotesque groups like this forming in the seedy underbelly of the world. This is another episode I'd recommend. I personally think it's really well done. It's an earlier season episode, and it's surprisingly light to watch given the subject matter.
Don't you think you owe everyone an apology for bringing Nambla here? Yeah. All right. I'm sorry I almost got you guys all ripped. There.
Number 7. Put it down. I personally feel a common issue we run into in our modern day society is paranoia over the news. Since we have instant access to the news, it can become a subconscious burden that many people constantly worry about. And while I think it's good to be informed, I think it's also important to remember that many of these are threats that are far away from us that we can't personally change. Put It Down follows Tweak's immense fear of nuclear annihilation, as he constantly keeps up to date with President Garrison's constant tweets at North Korea. Craig very thoughtfully says maybe Tweak should send cupcakes to the North Koreans as an olive branch.
All right, go home and make some cupcakes, honey. Okay.
What a great idea! Show them we're not all the personification of fecal matter here. It goes well until Garrison starts speaking on behalf of Tweak. The waste of oxygen blowhard accuses Tweak of spoiling the food and being unafraid of the Koreans. This doesn't help the situation and causes poor Tweak's mental health to spiral down even further. But eventually, Craig has a personal pep talk with Tweak, which encourages him to write a song about putting down the phone if you're elected president, which you just wish would be common sense to everyone. And while I'm sure President Garrison would rather smash his head through a wall than listen to another human being, well, at least it's a nice thought. This comes with a subplot of Cartman trying to rally suicide awareness, wait for it, just to get attention, and steal the limelight from the school's distracted driving message. Did I mention I hate this kid? I actually think this story is a decent commentary on our modern society, as understandably, people have become more paranoid. And this episode really captures that sense of foreboding fear we can often have. As it seems more and more every year, we just have no idea what's going to be thrown at us next. But while it's perfectly okay to be scared, I think it's a waste to let that fear control us. I think we're better off trying to find the courage to acknowledge and accept what we cannot change, and find the courage to change what we can. This episode brings awareness to both rising suicide rates and distracted driving, both of which are more and more major issues in our modern society. And I appreciate at least this episode reminding people of these issues. I recommend this episode. I commend the writers for how they handle these difficult subjects. And I appreciate that the darker themes were given a profound story. Number 6. The Return of Chef. This episode isn't just grim, it's sad, because some of it is based on a true story that permanently changed South Park. It's about them permanently losing Chef, one of the most unique characters the show ever had, and sadly because of real-life events. The events being that after Trey and Matt made fun of Scientology and Trapped in the Closet, Chef's actor felt they'd gone too far and left the show, despite the fact that South Park had already made fun of basically every other religion under the sun, even the ones that would threaten to bomb them. Sadly, Chef's actor was converted to Scientology, so the entire episode's basically a South Park-style analogy of losing Chef's voice actor. The story this time is Chef has finally returned to South Park after joining the Super Adventure Club. But something is very wrong with Chef, as he's suddenly trying to make advances towards the boys of the school, as well as him having this weird, unhinged way of speaking. Not the crappy movie, just his speaking style.
I'm gonna make love to your asshole, children.
Soon the boys figure out that the Super Adventure Club are the ones that have messed with Chef's head, so they head off to their evil headquarters. Here, they learn that Chef was brainwashed by the members. Even when they undo the brainwashing with the help of a very nice lady at a strip club, Chef is immediately captured afterwards anyway. But the saddest part is seeing Chef at the bridge, as we see him decide between the Super Adventure Club, aka Scientology, or South Park, and his final decision was the Adventure Club. And of course, since this is a South Park episode, nothing can be subtle. So Chef is brutally, tastelessly, and grotesquely ripped apart by lions. Ew. The whole thing is just a sad episode because Scientology won, and we lost what I consider the show's most unique character. And the boys' final speech at Chef's memorial is basically a direct speech towards Chef's voice actor.
I'm gonna remember Chef as the jolly old guy who always broke into song. I'm gonna remember Chef as the guy who gave us advice to live by.
Though Chef did come back later as Darth Chef. And we face off against him in an epic battle in Stick of Truth. And the 5th darkest South Park episode is Kenny Dies. The concept of making an episode revolving around the death of a character that has otherwise died countless times throughout the series is pretty clever, and it creates an iconic, memorable episode. And it subtly demonstrates how some people can respond to losing a friend or family member. The story is, a truck carrying a shipment full of fetuses crashes, so Cartman takes them home and tries to sell them as a get-rich-quick scheme. But Cartman can't sell them because unfortunately the government's banned stem cell research. Soon afterwards, the boys learn that Kenny, who has been suffering from harsh coughing, has been diagnosed with a muscular disease that kills the cells in his muscles. While normally Kenny comedically dying is a lighthearted joke in the show, it's hard not to feel Kenny's pain and vulnerability in this situation. After the boys learn of Kenny's condition, they all exhibit different but very real responses to seeing a loved one suffer a similar fate. Kyle wants to spend all his time with Kenny in his last few days, while Stan can't bear to see what Kenny has been reduced to, and refuses to let his final memories of Kenny be seeing him bedridden. What's most confronting about this episode is how real it all feels. Both of these mindsets are exactly how some people can respond to seeing loved ones and friends reach the end of their lives. Cartman, on the other hand, takes matters into his own hands by attempting to repeal the ban, so he heads off to the American House of Representatives. The reps agree to repeal the bill, and Cartman attempts to obtain as many fetuses as he can, supposedly in the hopes that the doctors can use the stem cells to replace Kenny's muscle cells. But did anyone honestly ever believe this little psychopath ever cared about another human life? Anyway, more importantly, after having a chat with Chef, Stan musters the courage to go and support his friend, only to discover that it's too late. Kenny is gone. Can you stay here for a sec, Boo? Thanks. Upon hearing Kenny's final words, "Where's Stan?" Stan is understandably stricken by grief.
He just said, "Where's Stan?"
It is an unrelentingly grim moment in the show. And just to twist the dagger even further, the story goes for a silly but not unpredictable twist, as Cartman reveals he actually used the stem cells to create a duplicate Shakey's pizza. Oh, what a surprise! Cartman is a sociopathic turd that doesn't bother to save his friend's life. Wendy, could you please beat this guy up again? Thank you. That's good. And sadly, that's the ending we get. Not a particularly clever or funny ending either. But the main drama and emotion of this episode is so palpable you can cut it. We get a thoughtful portrayal of many people's responses to loss of life. But jeebus, that ending was really stupid. Number 4. Butters' very own episode.
That's me.
What? An episode with Butters as a main character should not be the 4th darkest South Park episode, but here we are. An entire episode focused on my favorite character, Butters. And it's about his entire world collapsing before his eyes, without him even being aware of it until the last moment. The episode begins with Butters' parents' anniversary being only days away, with Butters' dad Steven leaving presumably to buy a present for Butters' mum, Linda. So Butters is then tasked by his mum to spy on his dad to help her choose a present of equal value.
I've just got to outdo him this year. I've just got to.
Oh, that was nice. Only to discover his dad is actually engaged in some homoerotic acts with some random guys. After Linda hears this, she becomes manic and insane and intends to take her own life, but not without attempting to kill her own son first.
Mommy will be with you very soon.
Jeebus, yeah, they went there. I still remember this scene and dialogue that Linda has with her son in the car.
You know that Mommy loves you an awful lot, don't you? And sometimes mommies do things that seem hurtful to their babies, but it's really for the best.
Poor Butters doesn't realize his mom's psychotic urge, and we see him float down the river. Miraculously, and because, well, it's Butters.
That's me.
He manages to survive and make the entire trek home by himself. Good for you, Butters. This kid's a real trooper, isn't he? 2 abusive and psychotic parents and an abusive grandma, and he still manages to cheat death and become a Mexican hero.
You've been really great amigos.
And have a positive attitude the whole way. Respects to you, Butters. When his parents do come to their senses and contact authorities, they unfortunately lie and say he was abducted by some Puerto Rican guy. Racial profiling, as if Butters' parents couldn't get any worse. This is where we get another dark twist about other people who refuse to expose their lies about them killing their children. But I did learn that one of these cases turned out to be wrong because of later genetic evidence, but anyway. Fortunately, I guess, Butters reunites with his parents at the end, and they get to go to Bennigan's after all. Because that was all that Butters wanted here, just to go to Bennigan's. A pleasant end to an otherwise dark, disturbing tragedy of a South Park episode. What's quite unnerving here is the portrayals of both Butters and his parents aren't unlike that of people who have experienced similar traumatic events. Though South Park is meant to be a parody of modern culture, the story in this episode feels all too real at times. And although I do enjoy this episode, for my favorite character's Butters' first episode, I think he deserves something a little bit lighter. These are starting to get pretty bleak. Alright, let's go. And the third darkest South Park episode is Woodland Critter Christmas. What better way of telling people happy holidays than showing an episode all about the birth of the Antichrist? The perfect Xmas story that truly captures the essence of excitement and joy it brings.
What special time and special day, it's Woodland Critter Christmas. Hail Satan!
Honestly though, I'll take this any day over the usual tree sap Xmas predictable dribble we get otherwise. The entire episode is basically a parody of the predictable 60s low-budget Xmas specials we used to get back in the day. The episode starts with Stan begrudgingly making a star for the tree that belongs to a group of woodland critters.
How would you like to sing and dance with us for a while?
The boy in the red poofball hat smiled and said,
No thanks. I'm gonna go home.
Our narrator's a bit pushy, you see.
Leave me alone!
he knew that only by going to the forest could he—
All right! God!
That night, they awake Stan from his slumber to ask him for help building a manger for the soon-to-be-born child of the porcupine. The critters lament, though, that the effort will likely be in vain, as the evil lion comes every year to devour the porcupine's child.
Let's face it, the mountain lion will never let our savior be born.
So the critters push Stan into killing the mountain lion to assure a merry Xmas. Stan confronts the beast and casts it off a ledge, her cubs horrifically witnessing her death.
all alone in the world because their mother had died.
Stan returns to the creatures to report his success, so the creatures reveal their dark motives.
Now our Critter Christmas can finally happen! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
You see, our woodland critter friends are actually Satanists, and the soon-to-be-born will actually be the Antichrist that brings ruin upon the world. And with the mountain lion gone, nothing can stop their plans now. But oh, it gets better. The animals celebrate by sacrificing the rabbit and having a blood orgy. Stan is understandably horrified, not helped by the fact that he was raised as a Christian. Unable to fight the creature's satanic powers, he learns only the mountain lion was immune to their powers. So in one of the most ridiculously silly plot twists in the entire series, Stan has the lion's cubs learn how to perform an abortion.
Hey, how'd she end up on your video?
Stan's reluctance through this whole thing, combined with Trey Parker's over-the-top enthusiastic narration, is really a treat to watch.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
Aw, God damn it!
When Stan and the cubs arrive at the manger, they're shocked to see Kyle tied up. The critters intend to use his body as a vessel for the Antichrist. But as Stan loses hope, Santa Claus appears and massacres all the animals. He explains that the Antichrist is powerless without a human host. In one of the story's weirder twists, Kyle takes the Antichrist and hosts it within his own body, vowing to conquer the world in the name of Judaism, which is both surprising but awesome to see him try to do.
Yes! Yes! Now the Jews shall take control of Christmas once and for all!
But Kyle soon regrets his decision, begging for the Antichrist to be exorcised from his body. Fortunately, Stan has some well-trained medics right here, so since clearly the episode wasn't weird enough, the cubs give an abortion to Kyle. Santa takes out the Antichrist and resurrects the lion. That's right, Santa here is awesome, though Kyle does die of AIDS 2 weeks later, because this is a Cartman story.
God damn it, Cartman!
This is one of my favorite stories in how much it goes all in, relishing in its own grotesque, hellish nature. Yet it still has a strong narrative and remains one of the most unpredictable Xmas stories I've ever seen, with some of the show's most hilariously off-the-wall plot twists. If you personally celebrate this holiday, it's a wonderful episode for a good old Xmas cackle.
Well, little boy, it seems that you have really been through a lot.
And the second darkest South Park episode is Cartman Sucks. Well, you didn't have to tell me that. This episode is a cavalcade of pretty shocking, unpleasant scenes the whole way through, with it even receiving complaints in Australia for self-annihilation, as they put it, and the dark themes of attempting to convert children from being bisexual or gay. A vile pseudoscience. We start with Cartman showing a scrapbook of all the sick pranks he's played on Butters while he slept over time, and he teases that tonight will be his, ultimate prank, which includes Cartman sexually assaulting Butters in his sleep, which has got to be up there and one of the worst things he's done. After bragging to his friends about it, Cartman is told that the only way to undo this is to do the same thing but in reverse, because Cartman doesn't want to be gay and is a little homophobic turd. But Mr. Stotch walks in right before Cartman does it, and immediately scolds Butters and signs him up for a gay conversion camp. Ironic given that Butters knows from 5 seasons ago that his dad's into a little meat and veg himself. Here at the gay conversion camp, Butters is bombarded by constant propaganda and witnesses many children committing suicide. Ugh. This ultimately hits a peak when Butters' roommate Bradley begins to panic over his feelings for Butters, and sadly, he attempts to commit suicide by jumping off a bridge in a surprisingly serious tone for South Park. But Butters gives a beautiful speech that I still remember vividly today, that perhaps it's okay for people to be bi-curious, and maybe he's a little bi-curious himself.
Because if I'm bi-curious, and I'm somehow made from God, then I figure God must be a little bi-curious himself.
And saying this helps his dad come out of the closet too, though Butters already knew that anyway. The side plot's actually kinda hilarious of watching Cartman get his just desserts, as he desperately attempts to get rid of the photo of him assaulting Butters. Though I found Butters was the main thing that kept this episode fun. This kid just takes everything in stride. He is just awesome. But anyway, this episode features some of South Park's darkest scenes in any episode yet. And as I mentioned, some of these scenes were so bleak that it caused controversy over its rating in Australia. The ACMA even filed a complaint about it because of, well, the visual depiction of suicide, yet alone the depiction of suicide for minors. Although I feel the subject is addressed well, that is a lot, even for South Park.
Wait, now I am confused.
And before we get to number 1, just a couple of quick honorable mentions. Scott Tenorman must die. I'm just tired of hearing this episode be praised as so wonderful and dark. I've watched it many times over years, and I've never found it particularly funny or dark. The only dark aspect of this episode is shoved in at the end with the rug pull. We learn that Cartman ground Scott's parents into chili, which he then fed to Scott. Yes, it shows Cartman is a psychopath willing to murder multiple people, but we already knew that. Although it has its many fans, personally, this episode isn't my cup of tea. But you might want to look and judge for yourself if you haven't seen it, if only to see what all the fuss is about.
Nya 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 nya. I made you eat your parents. Nya 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 nya.
200 and 201. These episodes are pretty hard to come by without having the home media release of season 14. The episodes aren't particularly dark by themselves, but rather the ensuing backlash from these episodes is possibly the darkest chapter in Trey and Matt's careers. The two creators received numerous death threats for the depiction of the Prophet Muhammad in episodes like these and Super Best Friends. Thus, these episodes have never seen a rerun to this day. Brittany's new look. The episode does feature a pretty dark concept and idea, but it really doesn't go anywhere, and I personally don't consider it a good episode. Probably the darkest part of the episode is Brittany's failed suicide attempt. Afterwards, it just follows her being endlessly pursued by the paparazzi, complete with poor Brittany almost having her head blown off. And this gruesome joke's drawn out for like 15 minutes. It wasn't at all funny to me, and personally one of my least favorite episodes. Ugh, this one. I don't want to cover this one either. And the number 1 darkest South Park episode is Human Centipede. pathetic. This is little more than a snuff film, a demonstration of the torture and defilement of humanity through the twisting and corruption of their bodies irreparably, leaving them in a state of eternal torture. Yep, this is the darkest. Here we have the epitome of a body horror episode, featuring what I'd call the most gruesome and morbid South Park plot ever done, as it's an homage to a film I'd rather not name, because I'd rather not give it the traffic. The episode begins with the boys at school playing with their new iPads, but Kyle soon finds himself in big trouble, having failed to read the terms and agreements to an iPad update he agreed to. Unfortunately for him, the document states upon agreement, Apple can do any number of things to the user. This includes kidnapping them and performing horrific, disfiguring surgery on them. And this is just what happens to Kyle and 2 others. Great. Just what no person beyond a very sick human being would ever want to see. Yet alone parody? Vile. Fetch me their souls.
Hey, let me out of here! This is a mistake! I agreed by accident!
Soon, Steve Jobs reveals the upcoming Apple product that would involve Kyle and the other victims, named the Human Centipede.
The Human Centipede!
Do you get it? I hope so, because they'll be grinding this revolting joke into the ground for the next 15 minutes. What is the point of all this endless horror? Apparently, it's a critique of the iPad. But how is this a critique of anything? I don't think I need to explain to you the anatomics of how matter is being transferred between these 3. Despite the body horror surgery complete, Steve Jobs continuously tortures the victims by tricking them into signing documents that take away more of their rights, all while continuously berating Carl for not reading any of the documents.
No, you didn't read it! This says we don't ever have to let you out and then we can do whatever we want!
It is horrifying. He feeds the Japanese man that Kyle is surgically attached to, and I think you can guess what happens.
Here it comes! Oh, it's going to be a rot!
I never thought I'd say this, but this is worse than Ren Seeks Help. At least Ren Seeks Help wasn't torturing humans. This is frighteningly terrible, beyond anything I've seen in a long time. Do we even care about the subplot at this point? Cartman wants an iPad, but it's too expensive. So Cartman spouts random verbal garbage about his mother molesting him.
Go ahead, here! Huh? Go ahead, Mom. Me.
It's like watching the worst shopping center tantrum in history. It's somehow still unpleasant, even amidst a story of body horror torture. They bring in a Dr. Phil parody. Cartman remains scum of the world, but also gets struck by lightning. Fortunately, Carl's agreement is deemed invalid thanks to the efforts of his father. The centipede is disassembled, and this sad abomination of an episode can finally come to an end. There was just nothing funny about this episode, or clever, or even slightly tasteful. This isn't just the darkest South Park episode. This is the #1 worst South Park episode. I can comfortably call this the darkest and worst South Park episode of all time. And it's my hope we never have to discuss it again. But regardless of my mixed thoughts on South Park nowadays, I can't deny how deeply this show affected me growing up. My channel probably wouldn't be here today without it. And whether South Park turned out to be right or wrong on these subjects, I appreciate that it got me thinking and it got me talking to others about difficult subjects. And I've had so many interesting debates and discussions with other people because of this show. So often, South Park used to bring attention to so many issues. And I think if a show can for years get people discussing and debating difficult subjects, I think at least that is something to be appreciated. And if you have something to say on these dark episodes or you think I missed one, feel free to leave your own thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Right, it's so hard to say. Ow. Whichever one there worked. What do you call the... Oh, too tired. I can't remember the name. The Wiggles.